Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women Created and Called Live. Thank you for joining me today. I am coming on a little bit late here, and if you have been following me for a little while, if you happen to hear the very first episode of Women Created and Called Live, episode 0 that was, you might have heard me talk about how sometimes this show is going to maybe be a little bit messy. And this is one of those days. And the reason is because sometimes breakthrough is very messy. And I just have been I've been in it today. I have been in it. So if you are seeing this episode on video, you can see what my messy looks like. And we're going to roll with it because that's what we do here. So today we're going to be talking about the places where we get stuck in the decision-making process. So this could be at the beginning, this could be somewhere in the middle, and sometimes it's at the end. And today I am going to be sharing very vulnerably and personally about where I often get stuck and what it looked like for me to work through that in a very intense coaching session just this morning. So that's what we have coming up. So you probably have heard me talk about the different places where we can get stuck, like I said. And this is when it comes to making decisions and taking bold action and trusting God with the outcome. And I've noticed for me that I often get stuck specifically at the beginning and the end of the process. So I can be really good at putting off decisions until later and not even wanting to even make the decision to decide to enter into that discernment process. Hi, Camilla. Thank you for joining me. And I can really often get stuck at the end of the decision when it's time to actually take action on it. These are the places where my brain likes to really avoid looking at reality and just likes to play all kinds of tricks on me to keep me from moving forward. So, anyone else, where do you tend to get stuck in that discernment or decision-making process? Is it before, and just like I said, for me, just choosing to actually make the decision instead of putting it off? Is that you? Or is it during the process? And so maybe for you, it might look like it takes you a really long time to discern. Maybe you keep gathering more information, or maybe you are waiting for a definite, clear answer from God. And so you just don't actually make the decision because you're telling yourself, I'm still discerning. I'm still working on it. Still discerning. I'm still waiting to hear what God wants me to do. Or is it another one that's very much like me? Is it at the end, after you have made the decision, but then you hesitate to actually act on it, thinking, I know I need to do that, but I'll do it someday, or sometime soon. I really will do it. Or like I said, someday. Just remember, someday is not a day on the calendar, is it? It's one of these things I need to remind myself of. But also, for me, in hesitating at this, at the end of the discernment process, what I've noticed is that I don't like to acknowledge all of the fear. This is what I discovered literally today, hours ago. I don't like to acknowledge all of the fear that's coming up around actually taking those actions. So that is where I can get really, really stuck. So let me know in the comments, where is it for you that you tend to get stuck in this whole process? So as I think about this for myself, I think this could be part of my natural temperament. I am, if we're talking about the temperaments, I am a sanguine and I'm a phlegmatic, and they're almost even as far as, how much of one or the other. And the sanguine in me loves the fun. I get really excited about things. I get excited about new ideas, and I think, oh, we need, I got to do this. And that part of me is not always good at the follow through part. Then the phlegmatic in me is the one that is probably more hesitant. And where that hesitation comes from can be people pleasing sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to hurt somebody, or I'm afraid somebody might be disappointed in me if I do the wrong thing, or the wrong thing. I'm using air quotes there. And also, just that fear that's coming up about it not being the right actions. So that's where I can get really stuck. That's the phlegmatic side of me. So I have, like I said, I have lots of ideas and I get really excited about them. And I might even say that I'm going to do all of them. And then I might end up not doing any of them. And then especially that phlegmatic side of me I go into the self beat up when I haven't followed through. I get really, I think, why did you do that again? All of the voices that might come up when you don't follow through. Because to be honest, when we don't follow through, yes, we do disappoint people. Very often the first person that we're disappointing is ourselves. So do you see that cycle? We have a fear, if you're like me and you have that phlegmatic side of you, we have that fear of disappointing someone, and then because of that fear, we don't follow through, and then in the very act of not following through, we disappoint someone. And like I said, the very first person that I'm disappointing is myself, because I'm literally creating evidence for my brain that I'm a person who doesn't follow through, instead of creating evidence to the opposite, that I am a person who follows through. And so the next time that I want to do something, guess what? Evidence my brain is going to pull up and show me. Oh, you're a person who doesn't follow through. You're not going to actually do that. So you see how it can get very tricky. It's a cycle. And there are ways to break this cycle. So there are some lessons that I have learned in this as I look at the way that my brain functions and my natural personalities and temperaments. And one thing, before I get into some of those specific lessons, the very first lesson that I've learned is that nothing has gone wrong here. And these parts of my personality is not something to fix. It's not something that needs to be fixed. This is actually the way that I am made to function. My beautiful brain is made to work this way. It's keeping me safe, or trying to keep me safe. That's the reason. And it's also giving me an opportunity to invite God's grace into every challenge. I get really excited when I think about that. The way that God designed our brains, it's amazing. Because when we invite God's grace into those challenges, that is when the growth happens. It's so exciting. So you hear the sanguine part of me coming out? Getting really excited about this. But this is something that I've really been working on. These places where I get stuck. So today I'm going to focus a little bit more on the later part, when we get stuck after we've made a decision about something, but we're so hesitant to actually take action and follow through with it. Because that is what I was dealing with, like I said, just a few hours ago. I have a long way to go, for sure. But after this intense impromptu coaching session with my coach this morning, and like I said, and breakthrough, I thought I would share with you a little bit of what I have learned so far. Like I said, still a work in progress, but here's what I've got so far. First lesson is don't avoid, and specifically here, I'm thinking of avoiding the feelings that might come up in this process. You might hear me refer to this avoidance as buffering. And that's really just kind of doing whatever you can to avoid feeling something uncomfortable. I'm really good at buffering. Anybody else? Leave it in the comments if that sounds like you. But again, digging deep and being willing to feel those feelings is where the growth happens. So it will likely be uncomfortable and maybe even painful. But here's what you can do. You can decide ahead of time that because what is waiting for you on the other side of this action, because what's waiting for you is so worth it. And if you don't know why it's worth it, do the exercise of asking yourself, why is it important? Why is it important that I do this action, that I follow through with what I said I was going to do? Think of as many reasons as you can. I suggest at least 5 to 10 reasons why it's important. Just go through. Why is that important? Okay, why was that one important? And keep going. Fill up a whole page. So decide ahead of time that you are willing to feel anything that comes up, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Because those reasons are so powerful and they're deep enough and they're big enough to pull you through when it gets hard. This is why these exercises in discovering what your big why is for doing something, this is why they're so important. Because you need that why to be big enough and deep enough to pull you through when it gets hard. Because I guarantee you it will get hard and uncomfortable and sometimes painful. So, decide ahead that you're willing to feel whatever feeling comes up. And remember that you are not alone. God's grace is with you in all of it. He's not going to leave you alone there. And that's going to come up again here in a minute with another lesson. So that's the first thing. Don't avoid it, okay? The second one is to investigate and interrogate. So the first thing that you notice when you're really allowing yourself to go deep with this is that it might be an action that you noticed, or in this case, it might be a lack of action. You might notice, oh, I said I was going to do that thing and then I didn't. I wonder why I didn't. Just get curious about it. So it might be an action that you first notice, or it could be a feeling that comes up. You could notice, I'm feeling really anxious. I wonder what that's about. So it could be a feeling, or you might notice the thought first. And it might be, what is one that I was just thinking of this morning? Oh, here was one. I don't know what I'm doing. That is a thought that does not lead me anywhere good in most cases. And it's not even necessarily true. So that's where the interrogating comes in. When you have these thoughts that come up, you get to interrogate them and investigate whether they are actually true. Would they hold up in a court of law? This is applying your thought and applying these feelings that are coming up to your gift of reason. The amazing, beautiful way that our brains are created. We have things that happen automatically, but we also have the gift of reason. And then you have an opportunity, when you apply your reason, you have an opportunity to exercise your will and choose. And that's huge. That makes all the difference. So, like I was saying, with each of these, whether it's a thought or a thought or a feeling or an action, get really curious about where it's coming from. And remember that an action is always being led by a feeling, and that feeling is being led by a thought that you are having. It's always coming from a thought. So the deeper you can go and investigate, fill in those spaces. If you notice the action first, investigate, what am I feeling and what am I thinking? And then go from there. If it's a thought that you're having and you notice that first, just think, okay, I'm thinking this thought. What feeling is this thought leading me to? And then what are the actions that I am doing or not doing because I'm thinking and feeling that way? So this is another way that we can investigate and interrogate, is to take it a step further. Besides filling in the thoughts and the feelings and the actions, take it a step further. What is my brain up to here? Why am I thinking that? Could my brain be trying to keep me safe from something? How is thinking that thought serving me right now? And maybe it is a case of, okay, it's protecting me. Let me give you a concrete example. That thought that I had earlier, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so that thought protects me from taking a risk, from doing something that is scary, from being misunderstood by other people, from really, it comes down to failure. Thinking that thought makes me not do the action and therefore prevents the failure that might be waiting for me if I do take the action. So in a tricky way, my brain is trying to protect me from failure. But what if we decide ahead of time that failure is no big deal? In fact, what if we even go as far as thinking failure is actually good? Failure is simply neutral. How about that? Can you get to, maybe it's not good, but maybe it's neutral? Because it's simply feedback. It's simply information that I can learn from, and then I can take different actions later, the next time. So that's just an example of, you want to ask yourself, what is my brain up to and why? What could be the reason why my brain is offering me these thoughts that is leading to these feelings and these actions? Okay, so the next lesson that I have learned is really the reason why I would want to even do this work in the first place. And that is because I have noticed that through coaching, through receiving coaching, it's actually helping me grow in holiness. When I examine my thoughts like this, and I examine my feelings, and I examine my actions and where they're all coming from, and how does it all fit together, and how are they creating the results that I have in my life, and how am I responsible for it? All of these things actually help me grow in holiness. And the reason why is because I'm learning how to bring God into those moments. So I'm going to give you an example of what happened with me this morning in just a second. So basically, one of the ways that it helps me grow in holiness is because the self-reliance that I have a tendency toward is out, and complete dependence on God's providence is in. The self-reliance goes out the window, and the dependence on God's providence comes in to those moments. So this morning, I was thinking about all of again, I have lots of ideas, right? I was thinking about all of the ideas and the plans and the goals that I've been thinking about lately. And I had an inkling of that this was coming up in the recent days, but today it just really came to the surface and kind of exploded on me. And that is the fear that is coming up as I think about these plans and these goals. And I noticed that the actions, or, my lack of action, really, lots of hesitating when it comes to acting on these plans and these ideas, they were coming from doubt and lots of mean thoughts. And I already shared with you one of them. But, the kinds of things that we've been talking about here. You're not going to do that. You're not going to follow through. This is not going to turn out the way that you're hoping. You're going to disappoint people again. You're going to disappoint yourself again. All of these things. And all of them, it turns out, were excuses that my brain was offering for me to not act on the ideas and follow through with what I had said I was going to do. But with coaching from my wonderful coach, Lisa, she said, okay, the fear's coming up. Stay there. No buffering allowed. She encouraged me to stay in that moment of feeling the fear. And we really investigated it and interrogated it together. There was no buffering going on. I wasn't trying to avoid it. So what was fascinating is she asked me if there was an image that came to mind as I was feeling, first she asked me if there's a color. And the first one that I thought of was, I kind of feel maybe black. I don't know, maybe black. I just noticed so much anxiety in my chest. I noticed the tears coming, and it felt like it was gripping me. It felt like the fear was gripping me. And then another image came to mind, and that was like a black tornado that was spinning around me. And all of these thoughts were spinning around me and they sounded very accusing. And when a thought is coming to you and it's accusing and it's condemning, it's not convicting. That's something different. But it's condemning you. Those are not coming from God. Conviction is different because conviction leads you to wanting to make it right. Condemning leaves you stuck in fear and despair and all of things that do not help you move forward. But conviction can help draw you forward. So that's the difference there. So that's the image. It was this black tornado spinning all around me. And she asked if I could invite Jesus into that image. And where is he? What is he doing? What is he saying? And what I imagined was I'm in the middle of this black tornado spinning all around me. And I look up and you know how there's a calm in the middle of the storm? So I look up and I see this light, at the top of the cyclone. And there is Jesus reaching down, trying to help pull me out of the spinning cyclone. And as I was experiencing this, I'm imagining that I am reaching for him and I can't quite reach him. And it was a terrible feeling. That's why I felt so stuck. But then, she's so funny. She said something like, okay, this is going to sound kind of weird, but what if you just tell the storm to stop? And my first thought immediately was, well, I can't tell the storm to stop, but Jesus can. We know this from Scripture. He calms the storm with his words, right? Remember that? So I just imagined him telling the storm to stop. And then suddenly I experienced it. I began to breathe much better. I was breathing easier and I just kind of sat there and let the breath come back. And then he pulls me up and the next image I had of him was he's holding me up as in, let me back up just a smidge. First, he looks at me with intense love. And then he was holding me up and we're walking together side by side. Again, he's the one holding me up. And we're walking on water. And he is softly speaking in my ear because I just asked him, what's next? What's next, Lord? What now? What's next, Lord? And so I'm walking with him. He's holding me up. He's telling me softly in my ear. And he's giving me instructions about what to do next. And what is really interesting is that I'm noticing, okay, now because I have this image of Jesus walking with me and guiding me along the way, what I'm noticing is that I am less attached to the outcome. It doesn't matter as much to me what happens at the other end of this trust walk. He said to me, let's take the next steps of this trust walk together. because that's what this is. When you walk on water, when you're being called out onto the water and you're walking toward Jesus, or in this case, if he's walking with you, it absolutely takes trust. And at the beginning of this whole experience, I was very much aware that I wasn't trusting. I wasn't trusting myself. I wasn't in a place of trusting Jesus. And so these things happen sometimes. Sometimes fear tries to take over. And we get to just be reminded that it's okay to trust. And that's exactly what will help you take your next steps forward. So, yes, I can be less attached to the outcome because I am walking with him along the way. And that's the part that matters the most. Okay, the fourth lesson I've learned, last one here. That was hard. That whole experience was hard. But because I was willing to choose my hard, it was hard to experience that, but I got to get on the other side of it by not avoiding the feelings, but sitting with them, interrogating them, investigating them. And because I did that, now I can be on the other side of it and I can move forward. It's also hard to buffer because those feelings are going to keep coming up. And you stay stuck in the storm and not moving forward. So, because I was able to choose my hard, chose the hard that got me on the other side of it, got me past the storm, got me taking my next steps. And because of that, I now have the opportunity to focus outward and share it with you. And I hope that it blesses you in some way. Maybe it's a reminder for you that you are not alone in the hard stuff. Maybe it's a reminder for you that when God is calling you to something and he's asking you to trust him, he doesn't abandon you. He is ready to hold you up and take the next steps on your trust walk with you together. So, those are the things that I have learned along the way. Like I said, there is a lot more to learn. I'm a work in progress, just like the rest of us. And that's what I've learned so far. Now, if you are ready to discover how coaching from a Catholic perspective is exactly what you need to help you make better decisions, take bold action, and trust God with the outcome, I can help you with that. So just send me an email to beth@womencreatedandcalled.com or come find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at womencreatedandcalled.com. And I would love to hear from you. I'll be back next week with more insights. And until then, as I'm recording this, this is All Souls Day. It's the Feast of All Souls that we celebrate. It's a very special day for me. I remember my loved ones who have passed away, including my dad and other loved ones. And it's also my daughter's birthday. So it's a very special day. And I just want to say God bless you and all those that you love, especially the souls of all the faithful departed. May they, through the mercy of God, rest in peace. And I'll see you next week. Bye.